everybody. How's it going? Here I am, I'm at the gym, and some of you guys and gals maybe were wondering about my finger and how this all happened. So I'm gonna tell you. Nobody else is in here right now. It's currently all to myself, so I'm pretty lucky. I just figured, hey, I'm gonna take this opportunity to tell you guys what an idiot I was. So I'll show you. So basically, you sit down with these guys. So I did a set of 10 of those, but somebody was using the weights that I normally use. I normally lift 35 pounds, and I was just like, no, that's too light. Somebody had the 35 pounds. I was using the 30 pounders, and I was like, no, that's way too light. So I basically put the 30 pounders on the ground, kind of like so, and then this is what happened. I went and grabbed 40 pounder. And lifting weights, you heard of a term called pushing to failure. That's exactly what I did. You push until your muscles fail. So, yes. There's another weight down there. I gassed out and dropped the weight. You can imagine what happened when I was holding this weight here and my finger connected with the weight that was right there. It popped like a friggin' cherry tomato, and it was gross. And then this is what happened after.
So I called my wife. She was at home. The kids were just put to bed, and I told her I hurt my finger. So I said, hey, I need you to come and take me to the hospital. And she was like, well, why don't you just get somebody at the gym to like help you? And I'm like, I really hurt my finger, I need to go. And that's all I said, I just hurt my finger. I didn't tell her it was off or anything like that. So anyhow, she said, okay, I'll come and get you. So anyways, I hung around the gym for a few more minutes, and I had somebody really nice help me out there. I was kind of walking around like this going, hey man, can you get my gym bag down for me? And can you put my jacket in there, and here, can you put my shoes away? And he's like, do you need any help? I'm like, no, my wife's taking me to the hospital. And so just waiting a few more minutes. And then another guy, he's like, hey man, what'd you do? And I'm like, yeah, I hurt my finger. He's like, oh yeah, let me see. So I showed him, and he's like, oh. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty bad. So anyways, waited, he got me some gauze and wrapped it up. And anyways, and then my wife showed up at the gym, and I'm just kind of standing there, and she's like, hey, show me what happened. And she had grabbed some Kleenex and some Band-Aids and some tensor bandage. So she's like, show me what happened. So I just kind of opened up my hand, and she's like, you need to go to the hospital. I'm like, I know. So I got in the front seat, and the kids are in the back seat, and we start going to the hospital. It's about a 5-minute car ride, and I was fine in the car ride. And then as we started getting closer and closer, started getting the cold sweats, started to go into shock. The back of my neck was starting to sweat really bad. and then I blacked out. My wife didn't know what was going on. I all of a sudden, she told me that I started yelling. My hands went up in the air, and my wife thought that it was my left hand, so she actually grabbed that finger because she didn't want the kids in the back seat who were screaming and yelling, "Daddy's going to die," and they're crying. This hand here is just kind of flailing around, you know, bloody and whatever. And anyhow, we kept on going, and I started to come around once we got to the hospital. She rushed me in, and I got in pretty much right away. So once I got in there, they gave me some pain meds. I forget what it was, had to go for an x-ray. I fractured the tip, so the bone in the tip of my finger broke. And my nail, I can't show the video or the pictures, which I have of it on YouTube here, but the nail was underneath my finger. Like my nail was flipped underneath, the whole thing was open, and my finger was split wide open. And anyway, so they kind of pulled it back on top, and they stitched it up and sent me home with some Tylenol 3s, codeine, and yeah, went to bed. Next morning, had to get up, and we went to plastic surgery, and they basically took a look at it and said, "Andy, it's pretty much dead skin. Like the tissue underneath my nail was there was nothing for the nail to stick to or to adhere to. So it basically, they said it's dead. What do you want to do? Do you want to leave it, or do you want to cut it off and get rid of it?" I'm like, well, that's a tough question. Like, what happens if we leave it? Well, it could get infected, and it would potentially make you have to lose more of your finger. And I was like, well, okay, that's a tough thing. So I thought about it, talked with my wife about it for a little bit, and called my dad and asked him his thoughts on it. And then we just decided, okay, we'll cut it off. So I told them we'll cut it off. And man, that was tough. I was awake for the whole thing. I was just looking away like this, my wife covering my eyes so I can't watch it. I started to like go a little bit crazy. So they gave me some drug to calm me right down. I don't know what it was, just a small pill under my tongue, and just calm me right down. And then, yeah, once that was done, sent me home. It was all bandaged up, and yeah, big gauze on there. Had to leave it in there for 48 hours.
Hey everybody, good morning. Just an update on things. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm home now. Got home yesterday afternoon. The freezing wore off at around 5 o'clock, and then I just got into excruciating pain. The Tylenol 3s, which have codeine in it, they were doing nothing, so it felt like my finger was on fire. And it basically felt like when I smashed my finger the whole time. So I kind of endured that for a couple hours and put the kids to bed. And then my dad and I went to the hospital, and at 1:30 in the morning, I got Percocet for the pain, and couldn't sleep. It was up till about 3 o'clock this morning. And 4 o'clock came, so I slept for a couple hours. So, yeah. So, anyways, I'm back home, just recovering. It's has a pulse. I can feel it. It hurts like crazy.
First night, I was sleeping in a reclining bed, so my arm could be up in a recliner, and the recliner was really close to the wall. And first night, I was adjusting my pillow, and I whacked the wall with my finger, and it hurt like you wouldn't believe, like more than the initial hit, the initial damage. It hurt so bad. So, anyways, that was first night. That was an adventure. When we had to take off the bandage, though, and I know the story is getting really long here, but anyways, when I had to take off the bandage, I wanted to do it myself because the sutures, or the stitches, were actually sticking through the gauze. And so when we were taking it off, it was pulling, and it was kind of, the gauze was stuck to all the fluid and blood and everything in there. So it was hurting, so I wanted to control it. So as I started pulling it off, and then I saw it kind of for the first time, and I was just like, oh, and I passed out. And my wife said she thought I stopped breathing. I was breathing. My son, my oldest son, who is 19, he was trained in paramedics or in life-saving. He helped me as well and called 911, and we had a party at our house. So we had a whole bunch of people show up, fire truck, ambulance, police, or not police, but the fire chief and all that. They were all walking through the house here, and basically I woke up on the ground with my finger up in the air, and my wife, my son are there, and a bunch of paramedics and everything, and they're just changing my bandage for me because I couldn't do it myself. So a bit of a suck for pain. So that's basically the week after this whole ordeal. And now, a couple of weeks later, we're all in quarantine with coronavirus. So it's a little bit crazy. Everybody's got a lot of challenges in their life, but you know what? You can get through anything. This was probably the biggest thing that happened to me in my life. I know it's really small, but it's something tough. And anyways, my encouragement to you is when you're going through tough things, you know what? Look in the bright side. There's lots of good to be had. The good thing about this whole thing with being stuck at home and the pandemic and everything is I'm getting lots of quality time with my family, calling customers with my kids sitting on my knee, which I can't have that at the office. So anyhow, that's the story about my finger. If you watch this, I appreciate it. We'll be doing truck videos here pretty soon. I think I have one to shoot next week, so stick around for that, and we'll see you guys soon. Have the world's best day.